After discovering my wife's secret affair, I vanished without a word. Now she's pleading for a second chance, but I've moved on. I departed silently after discovering my spouse's infidelity. A year later, she sought me out, pleading for forgiveness and a fresh start. Upon learning of my wife's betrayal, I relocated to the Highlands. I'm unsure why I'm documenting this, but perhaps it will prove beneficial to someone. The episode is now behind me, and I've moved forward. Approximately 3.5 years into our marriage, in February 2018, I uncovered my wife's affair. My profession involved contract work that occasionally necessitated extensive travel, yet also afforded me the option to work from home upon my return. As a director at a technical sales company, my wife held a highly profitable role. Despite a certain tension due to her increasingly long hours and my business trips, we still considered our marriage to be quite successful. About 5 years ago, I encountered my now ex-wife at a social gathering hosted by a mutual acquaintance. We immediately connected once we began conversing. Frankly, I perceived it as a considerable advantage to be with such an attractive and articulate woman. My somewhat rugged disposition seemed to appeal to her. After a few weeks of courtship, we were deeply enamored with each other. When we would meet at our respective apartments, our clothing rapidly came off. After 18 months of dating, we eventually married and moved into a spacious apartment while accumulating funds for a down payment on a home. Changes began to emerge after our 3rd year of matrimony. Though I still harbored affection for her, I observed her instigating arguments over trivial matters. When I mentioned her late nights and increasingly frequent work-related outings, she would become enraged. She asserted it was a necessary component of paying her dues, particularly as she advanced in her corporate career. At least, that was her justification. She informed me that since I was also absent for weeks at a time, I had no right to challenge her. In reality, I had only been taking brief vacations for 3 or 4 days every 5 weeks or so, and I assured her I could readily reduce my travel. These highly repetitive disagreements never reached a conclusion. Reflecting, I realized I was unaware of my wife's clandestine relationship. Aside from our diminishing intimate life and her consistently late work hours, I would never have suspected anything untoward. I simply presumed she was exhausted from her job, but the frequent rejection when I attempted to initiate intimacy had damaged my self-esteem. Although she possessed a work mobile phone and might have been utilizing it, I did not witness the covert texting I had read about in other accounts. She used our spare bedroom as a home office and spent a great deal of time there. Around September 2017, Kathy started returning home from work and then spending her evenings at a professional engagement. This escalated from 1 night per week to over 3 nights each week. While I'm not inherently prone to envy, she would undeniably be noticed by others, and I knew she would need to deter some of the men at her workplace. Despite collaborating with more male executives than female, she conveyed the impression that she was exclusively focused on her career. The first instance I suspected her disloyalty occurred a month before the discovery day. Before returning home, she had made a quick stop at the grocery store. I was asked to assist her with the shopping. As I was retrieving a few items from the rear seat, something pink was glinting from just beneath the front passenger seat of her vehicle. It was her brassiere. She favored a particular brand, so I knew it was hers. In retrospect, the bra was a premonition. She always removes her bra first from beneath her attire when she's feeling very amorous. I'm not sure why, but when I observed this, I instantly felt a wave of nausea. I couldn't comprehend why her bra was beneath the seat. I didn't utter another word. My heart must have been pounding so intensely that I nearly fainted, because when I brought the bags back to the kitchen, Kathy inquired about my well-being and remarked that I appeared to have seen a specter. I simply disregarded her comment. It took every ounce of my resolve to conceal my emotions, but I did my utmost not to appear distressed or deceived. I resolved to attempt to ascertain whether or not she was seeing someone that night and the subsequent day. I began to consider all the indicators I might have overlooked. Other than the bra, I had no tangible proof. She works in an office building downtown, and we reside in a reasonably large city. I decided to temporarily set aside the notion of an affair and consider giving her more of my attention. One Friday after work, I procured an arrangement of blossoms and a fine bottle of vino. I prepared a delectable meal and arranged the dining table with elegant dinnerware, cutlery, and candles. When she arrived, as usual, gliding in after work, I highlighted the dinner and all I had prepared. She apologized, stating she was sorry, but had to attend a neighborhood gathering to meet her colleagues. She mentioned she needed to shower first, but could have a small bite with me before she departed. I suppose I became utterly silent, as my insides churned. I won't articulate the type of fury I was experiencing at the time, but I had reached my limit. While she was taking a shower, I took my work cell phone and tossed it into her backseat. I had been contemplating this as a method to use my own phone to track her. After that, I walked into the kitchen and discarded the food and flowers in the refuse bin. After showering, She got ready and looked stunning as always. "All right, let's eat," she said. "Never mind. Go out with your friends," I urged. She gave me an odd look and asked if I was angry. "I'm sad that you never want to do anything with me," I said. She became agitated and sarcastically remarked on my short fuse, telling me to cease acting like a child. "Foolish me," I muttered as I stood there, allowing everything to settle in. For once, I felt we should spend the evening together. She simply gave me a sly grin and stormed off. When she departed, I retrieved my second phone and began tracking my work phone. Approximately 20 minutes away, at the bar she frequently patronizes with her coworkers, I observed her stopping. I resolved to go locate her automobile. Indeed, it was in the bar's parking lot. I waited in my car across the street to see if I could spot her. I felt completely different, like a pursuer, but I told myself that I had to subdue my apprehension about her whereabouts. About an hour after my arrival, I observed her exiting the bar with a man. He had the appearance of an executive from her company. He took hold of her, drew her near, and pressed a kiss on her lips. My body was completely numb, and my stomach began to cramp. They went to a different vehicle and entered together. When their automobile pulled out, I attempted to keep pace with them. You guessed it, they drove to a hotel 10 minutes away. As I stopped on the street beside the hotel, I witnessed them exit, holding hands, and enter. I had witnessed enough. I felt foolish. I began striking the steering wheel with my fist. That was it. Something within me went utterly blank. I'm not sure if I had an out-of-body experience or blacked out, but as I regained my composure, I felt like I desired a drink. At this juncture, my life embarked on a trajectory I never would have envisioned. I simply began to drive out of town, replaying all that I had just witnessed. I was weeping from anger, as much as I hate to admit it. I located a pleasant little public house on the outskirts of town, some 30 miles away, and stopped in. I ordered a beverage while seated at the bar. The bartender, a woman, remarked that I looked like someone had taken the wind out of my sails, so I guess I looked like death warmed over. "You could say that," I answered, half smiling. A man sat down beside me and initiated a discussion. Even though I didn't feel like conversing, there was something about this individual that put me at ease. We struck up a conversation, and eventually, my wife's infidelity arose. I told him all I desired was to escape her and forget about her. "You're not alone, pal," he replied, patting my back after a quick glance. "I experienced that a few years ago. I think there's a reason these things occur. Your life can now take a positive or negative turn. I assure you, at this point, everything is entirely up to you." His remarks, for some reason, roused me from my despondency. Even though I was cognizant of my pain, I've always been able to perceive things rationally, and he was absolutely correct. We identified ourselves. His name was Ree. I genuinely appreciated his down-to-earth demeanor, even though he was more of a rural type. "Are you going to move out?" he inquired. I suppose I never thought to look that far ahead. I had a fight-or-flight response active, and I knew I didn't want to be around this woman any longer. "I have an idea, and I feel very sympathetic to your situation," Ree added. "When the time comes, I have a mobile trailer on my land in case you feel the need to go. It might require some work and isn't in prime condition. Why don't you visit and see if you could imagine yourself briefly residing in anything like that? I'll give you a fantastic deal on it. At least you could even park it on a lovely piece of property I own. I would appreciate it if you could watch it for me. It could be beneficial to escape your predicament. Just a thought." I took a moment to grasp his concept. Hell, honey, if I could have escaped my crazy ex-husband years ago, I would have jumped at the chance to go live in his trailer or anything just to get my head on straight, added the bartender, who had been listening in on the chat. Perhaps this was just what I needed, but I felt as though I had wandered into an alternate reality. "Yes, I'll consider it and maybe check it out," I said to Ree. After a while, we separated and agreed to meet at his house in a few days. I began to feel as though I had some perspective and an opportunity to escape what I perceived as a terrible heartache combined with a nightmare. I knew one thing for certain: I would never, ever want to spend time with my wife again. I find infidelity so abhorrent, and it has always been the one thing I thought I would never endure. When I arrived home that evening, Kathy asked me where I had been when she emerged. "Where have you been?" I questioned, turning to face her. "You know, I went to grab drinks," she said. I directly inquired, "Are you having an affair?" She appeared surprised, but she soon composed herself and responded, "No, why would you ask me that?" I informed her that I had heard she might be seeing someone at work. "Who told you that?" she said. "Someone I know," I said, but I kept the name secret. After saying, "You're being ridiculous," she accused me of being intoxicated and insane and inquired about my whereabouts. "We were going to a bar to enjoy some drinks with our friends," I remarked. Despite her obvious desire to ask more questions, she returned to our bedroom and went to bed. Now that I had confirmation that she had been deceiving me for months, I decided to sleep on the sofa. I couldn't sleep at all because I kept envisioning her in bed with this man. I felt self-pity, disgust, and hurt, but then I thought about Ree's trailer. The thought of it uplifted my spirits, and it was almost like an epiphany. Something must be amiss with me since the fight-or-flight response automatically activated amidst the pain I was experiencing, and I favored the flight response. We didn't converse much the following morning and continued with the weekend as if nothing had transpired. I scheduled a meeting with Ree a few days later. I noticed that Ree possessed a lovely ranch when I arrived, and the trailer was actually quite appealing, approximately 26 feet long and fully furnished. It evoked memories of an enjoyable spring break trip I took with companions while I was in college. Ree accepted the money I offered him for the trailer. To be honest, I almost took it from him. I drove over to see his ranch property after he provided me with directions. There were hiking and biking trails nearby, and the area was charming with numerous trees and scrub vegetation. Ree had a small cabin on a hilltop overlooking the property with electricity and water accessible for the trailer, and it was close to the foothills of some mountains. Ree promised to set up the trailer for me and transport it to the location. I tried to get Kathy to confess over the course of the following few weeks, but all I received was gaslighting. I even bluntly warned her that there would be no turning back if I discovered she was being unfaithful. As a result, she became even more immersed in her affair and began to lash out at me with denials. I nearly chuckled at how egregious the denial was. I chastised myself for not capturing images of the two of them, and I had no concrete evidence that she had cheated. I decided that I wanted to end this marriage after enduring this emotional torment. Instead of articulating my feelings to Kathy, I simply began making arrangements while she was at work. I started quietly removing my belongings from the apartment and transferring them to the trailer. At least I felt like I was taking action. I observed a change in Kathy during this period. Although she had been behaving more courteously toward me, I believed it was too little too late. I felt I needed a break too, so she kept going on company outings after work. One night, I also prepared to leave, just as she was departing. After glancing at me, she inquired about my destination. Meeting up with some friends, I said. You wouldn't enjoy all the shop talk and you don't know them. I interrupted her as she began to ask more questions. She used to say precisely this to me whenever I asked if I might accompany her on office excursions. All right, have a good time, she added with a somewhat offended expression. I definitely will, I replied. I began forming new acquaintances while working on the trailer and spending time with Ree at the bar. I felt better after spending time with Ree's wonderful family and friends. I also resolved to reduce my alcohol consumption because I didn't want to develop any unhealthy habits. I knew better than to wallow in self-pity, even though it would have been so simple. At this point, Kathy informed me that the next week she would be traveling for work. The executive team and a few department heads are going, she stated when I inquired who was going. I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend, I added, glancing at her. I immediately regretted saying that because it ignited a furious argument. Although, as Ree had informed me, it didn't truly matter. I now regret not knowing more about her affair partner. It doesn't matter who the other guy is, Ree replied. The fact that she chose to abandon you is all that matters. She destroyed the marriage whether she admits it or not. Brother, facts are facts. Ree ought to author a book for the betrayed. Damn it. I had the perfect opportunity to relocate entirely during Kathy's work trip. When she was gone, I gathered everything valuable that belonged to me, including clothes, laptops, and equipment. I didn't take any shared possessions or furniture. I left a note before I departed. It was a lengthy explanation at first, but I chose to make it concise. I wrote, I hope it was worth it, on a piece of paper. On top of the note on the kitchen table, I placed my wedding ring. I felt like a great burden had been lifted as I left. I was emancipated. The pain would require time to heal, and there would be emotional baggage to contend with, but I had begun. I needed time to myself and to swiftly and quietly distance myself from her. The fact that I hadn't confronted her or forced a confession didn't make me proud. I hadn't screamed or yelled. She didn't deserve it, in my opinion. She disregarded everything we possessed, including our plans for the future, our aspirations for a home and a family, and now it was all gone. There was no turning back. I owed her absolutely nothing. She could face the repercussions. I hadn't planned anything or contacted a lawyer. I just desired a new beginning and some clarity. The mountain air was precisely what I needed when I entered my trailer. I resumed running the next week, and it was wonderful to be alive. Kathy texted things like, we just landed, we're having a team dinner, and so on while she was away. Where are you? Was the question in a few messages. Why haven't you responded to me? I didn't answer. My phone erupted with calls and texts when she got home. She kept trying to get in touch with me, but I ignored her. Her mother also attempted to phone me after the first day, but I didn't pick up. She didn't try to engage my father because we aren't close, and he is the only member of my family that I still have. Her messages grew more insistent after she was ignored for a week. What is this? Was one of the texts she sent. We must speak. I'm not sure what you believe you know, but nothing is happening. There isn't an affair going on. She finally texted me after a week of no response saying, I'm sorry, things got out of hand. It didn't matter that I was involved with someone at work. You were absent a lot while I was preoccupied with my work. I simply made an error. I intended to terminate it. An error? I've been anticipating this confession all along, yet somehow it only intensified my disdain for her. Why was she unable to be truthful? I didn't harbor any dreams about a future with this woman. Errors don't persist for 6, 8, or a year. Her pleas for me to return and work on the marriage eventually became pathetic. I refused to respond to her even after she ceased bothering me for a few weeks. I didn't want her to learn my whereabouts or to intrude upon my life. I didn't want my sanctuary to be destroyed by this woman. She then began sending hostile texts like, you're a coward. One day you refused to speak to me. You have no regard for us. Come home please, so we can discuss. You're where? Am I able to visit you? Paul, please let's chat and make things right, damn it. Although I don't recall all of the texts, they all appeared to be justifications with minimal genuine remorse. In one ear, I let them go and out the other. After a while, I changed my mobile number. Update, June 2018. I received an email from Kathy informing me that she had retained legal counsel and was going to file for divorce. I simply said, okay, that sounds good. This led to a torrent of emails requesting that I visit her and other things. She wrote that she would cease bothering me if I consented to an uncontested divorce after realizing this wouldn't work. After I consented, I was truly free a few months later. After I moved out of our apartment, I never had to see her again. She seemed to care more about that than I did, even though neither of us had any closure. I would occasionally think of her for a few months, and yes, the grief would suddenly come to me, like when I heard a song we used to enjoy. After a while, though, I simply stopped thinking about her. Update 2. Now that I'm officially divorced, things are progressing wonderfully. In fact, I became acquainted with a delightful girl just down the hill from my residence. I was running on the trail. We connected when I assisted her in changing a flat tire. Despite being a few years my junior, she is fantastic and quite charming. She refers to me as her mountain man and adores my way of life. Although I'm not in a hurry to commit, I also don't intend to completely abandon relationships with women. I have no intention of vacating the trailer anytime soon. I enjoy being outdoors and have simplified my existence. It made everything easier for me, including the sorrow and my ex-wife. I'm aware that everyone reacts to these situations in a unique manner. I was fortunate to be in my 3rd year of marriage and not yet a parent. I believe I acted in my own best interests. You don't have to spend your entire life with someone who is unfaithful. If you experience something similar, try not to dwell on it too much. Continue living your life. As you improve yourself, it will get better. I hope everyone has the best possible life. I've refined this approximately 5 times to enhance readability, and I just wanted to provide an update on my ex-wife's situation. I was concerned that my ex-wife was attempting to locate me, as I indicated in my earlier post. I left our previous dwelling, which was around 2 hours away. I encountered her last weekend at a coffee shop I frequently visit in the town near my home. It did not seem like a coincidence to me. Fortunately, I managed to escape before she noticed me. Third update. I went into town this past weekend to procure groceries and made a stop at my customary coffee establishment. I was utilizing their complimentary internet to work on some paperwork for my job. I finished and exited the coffee shop. I was on my way to my pickup when I heard someone call out Paul. When I turned to look across the street, I saw Kathy. My ex-wife was waving at me. Finally, Armageddon had arrived. She hurried across the street toward me, and I stood there in disbelief, as though anticipating an embrace. She walked over and extended her hand. I halted her in her tracks by instinctively holding out my arms with my palms up. She appeared to be in severe distress. Then she added, I've been searching for you, Paul. I've wanted to see you since I heard you moved here. Can we have a conversation? Gentlemen, I felt like an animal confined in a cage. Yes, I did. All right, let's find a table or something and we can talk for a minute. I finally conceded. When she asked if we could come to my house, I firmly declined. At the end of the street, she followed me down to a bench outside a small store. She began by remarking on how much I had transformed and how much she liked my new appearance, beard, and level of physical fitness. She raved about how much my physique had changed. Wearing a tank top, small white shorts, and her hair in a ponytail, just as I used to appreciate, she was truly employing her charm. My radar was highly attuned. She was clearly attempting to activate sexual appeal. I needed to maintain control, so I could discern where this was headed. She began by expressing remorse about the affair. She claimed that after I left, karma had severely affected her. When her employer learned of the affair, the situation became so strained that she eventually resigned. Her affair partner, who at the time was engaged, received censure and was transferred to a different department within the organization. She responded by revealing the truth to his fiancé after he blamed her for everything, which caused them to separate. This is when she bowed her head and began to weep. I didn't utter a word. I just sat there and surveyed my surroundings. She stood upright and looked at me for a while. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She assured me that she had no intention of having an affair. She stated that the company's politics and positioning drew her in and that her affair partner used his charisma and influence to corrupt her. She acknowledged that she felt she was exploiting him as much as he was exploiting her. After I accused her of cheating, she stated that she intended to come clean. She drank after work to alleviate the guilt she felt at the moment because she loathed herself. She claimed that she felt so foolish, so isolated, and as if her heart had shattered with loss immediately after I departed. She terminated her relationship with her affair partner right away. She believed she had to find me to see if there was any possibility of reconciliation because I refused to speak with her or get in touch with her. She desired a fresh start. She hoped we could begin anew, even though she knew we were divorced. I simply gazed at her. I then delivered my message. "You have no right to come out here and undo all the harm you have caused. Do you think I'll overlook everything you did to destroy our bond? As I previously stated, we were finished. If you cheated, forgiveness does not exist. This relationship will not be rekindled. You extinguished it as soon as you left me. You ruined everything we had. How naive do you believe me to be? One evening I watched you enter a hotel with him. Were you aware of that?" I became aware that people were beginning to notice that my voice had been escalating. She grabbed my arm and started crying. After allowing her to sob on my shoulder for a while, I pushed her away. "I deserve all this," she replied, glancing up at me. "I am certain that I do. If nothing else, would you allow me to take you out to dinner?" "I'd rather not go. I would like to converse further. I want to ensure that we are transparent about everything. You need to spend more time with me than you have in the past. Paul, please. I love you so much, even though I know you might not want to hear it. Before you left me, I had no idea how much I loved you. You broke me as much as I broke you. I am unable to forgive myself and don't want to do so until the day I pass away." She began to sob uncontrollably and hyperventilate. I lifted her up and gave her an embrace. It seemed like my only option for comforting her. I knew then that I had shattered her heart as severely as she had shattered mine. Walking, we located a tranquil spot to continue our conversation. "How did you find me?" I said when she had composed herself. "Have you engaged a private investigator?" After giving it some thought, she responded, "No," with a slight giggle. She clarified that she inquired about how things were going when she encountered Stacy a few weeks prior. Stacy didn't mention that she had noticed me. Kathy compelled her to reveal all the information. I had warned Stacy not to tell her, so she was hesitant, but Kathy persisted. Stacy finally relented, but all she knew was that I lived somewhere nearby and was in town on her days off. She began to come here to check on me. I kind of chuckled when she said that, thinking, damn, Stacy can't keep her mouth shut. She blushed. We ultimately decided to have dinner at a charming little establishment with an outdoor seating area. I made sure we didn't consume any alcohol since I wasn't going to give her a reason to be kind to me or say she wasn't so inebriated that she couldn't drive back. In fact, we had a good conversation. I then escorted her to her vehicle. She insisted that she hadn't dated anyone else since I left and vowed fervently that I was the only person she desired, so she pressed me hard to stay longer. "No, it's still far too early for me to pursue that path," I informed her. She pleaded with me to return, but I didn't assent. After providing her with my new email address, I didn't say anything further. My response to her request for my phone number was, "You'll just inundate it with texts and calls." She wept over it, but in the end, she agreed with my decision. She promised to send me an email with information on returning to town the following weekend before she left. I asked her directly, "Would you have forgiven me if I had been the one cheating?" before she got into her car. "Yes, in time, but only if we saw a marriage counselor and worked through the healing process with extensive discussion, maybe even a binding agreement," she responded after pausing to reflect. "All right, maybe I could do that in 5 or 10 years, I answered. "I would wait if that's what it would take," she replied. She then took both of my hands in hers, looked me in the eye, and said, "God damn it, Paul, I will always love you and will do anything to prove it." This statement truly caught me by surprise. Her remarks continued to unsettle me even after she left. She had spoken those words so firmly. However, I was still unable to envision us reuniting. Even though I felt better about the incident, I was unable to perceive her as a friend at this time. Perhaps a friend, but even that was an enigma. I returned home, enjoyed a long run, had some beer, and contemplated how far I had come. Could someone please assure me that she wouldn't disrupt the tranquility I had created for myself? I had no idea. I had the luxury of time to sort through it and gain perspective, but it was all still too vivid in my mind. Last update. Most likely, this will be my final update. When I first uploaded my story to Reddit, the moderators kept removing it. In summary, I ceased contact with my ex-wife for more than a year before she discovered me. She wanted to make amends and start over with us. You will be deeply disappointed if you thought I would be the typical compliant fool and forgive her. She expressed her love and regret for the affair in a lengthy email she sent me last week. She offered to come out and stay with me for the weekend once more. My answer, I silenced her. I informed her that I had no plans to reconcile with her. I'm completely content living alone, taking advantage of my secluded position, and keeping things simple. At 32, I'm not in a rush to make changes. I have my own self-directed plan and have enjoyed the company of a few women and friends. I made it clear in my email response that I had no intention of reconciling and declined to provide her with my phone number. I no longer know or trust you. Since you made your bed, I hope the best for you, and perhaps we might become friends in the future, but not right now. She was irritated by my evasiveness and responded in a revealing way. She acknowledged that she had accepted a job offer from a different state. Her true objective had been for me to accompany her, believing that my remote work would make the move simple. She wished we could start over somewhere new. She wanted to visit me in person to attempt to persuade me because she was running out of time before relocating. Fortunately for me, her time was up because I had a week of business travel scheduled. I'm grateful. I will no longer have her in my life. She will soon recognize that her time with me is over, but I anticipate receiving a few more emails. She'll need to find someone else, and she might even betray them. To anyone reading this, make the most of your life, let go of the past, and empower yourself to move forward. To all of you, good luck. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.